Imagine a celestial body the size of a mountain, hurtling straight toward Earth, not gliding gracefully like a typical comet, not following the predictable arc of a solar system asteroid. No, this thing follows a hyperbolic trajectory, indicative of its interstellar origins, almost as if it's charting an unusual path. This is 3I Atlas.
A 3I Atlas.
3I Atlas.
3I Atlas.
3I Atlas. A lot of people are talking about that right now.
NASA's Perseverance rover captured something completely unexpected.
An object expected to reach its closest point to the Sun in late October 2025 and pass Earth at the safe distance of about 170 million miles in December 2025. Scientists officially call it an interstellar object, the third one ever detected after the famous Oumuamua and 2I Borisov. But there is one person who refuses to leave dry terminology unchallenged: Harvard professor Avi Loeb. And this highly respected astrophysicist says with a perfectly straight face, if it doesn't behave like a rock, maybe it isn't a rock. In other words, spoken very politely, what if it's a flying saucer? And it's moments like this when I love asking one very uncomfortable question. What if it's all true? What if year after year, decade after decade, century after century, someone really does appear in our skies, only to vanish again? What if we aren't just gazing at the stars, but the stars have been watching us all along? If you just smirked skeptically, that's fine, but let's play a little game. Let's set doubt aside for a moment and look at human history like we are uncovering a hidden story. And we'll start with the oldest cases in the archives. But before we dive in, if you are as hooked on these mysteries as I am, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. We've got plenty more stories coming. Drop a comment below with your wildest UFO theory or what you think about 3I Atlas, and share this video with a friend who is always looking up at the stars. Thank you so much for your support. It helps us to keep going and create more content just for you. Now let's uncover those ancient witnesses. You know, whenever someone says there is no UFOs in the past, I can't help but wonder, what if we just didn't have the words for them back then? The term UFO is modern, but reports of strange things in the sky, those go way back. Let's dive in someone's earliest accounts from history and see what they might tell us about our skies. Starting with the ancient Egypt around the 15th centuries BCE, there is this controversial document called the Thule Papyrus, linked in the time of Pharaoh Thutmose III. It describes a fiery disk in the sky, larger than a ship's sail, that hovered over the royal palace for several days before ascending with what seemed like a stars falling from it. Was this a real sighting, or could it have been a natural event misinterpreted? What do you think? Then, in Rome, the historian Titus Livius or Livy recorded reports of a phantom ships gleaming in the sky during a time of war. Other accounts from around that era mentioned silver orbs reflecting the sun. The Romans were known for their straightforward records. If they saw something unusual, they noted as it is. Could this have been some kind of atmospheric phenomenon or something more mysterious? It's worth pondering. Over in India, the ancient Vedic texts like Mahabharata talked about Vimanas, flying chariots used by the gods. These are described with a surprising detail, like having upper levels with observation windows and lower decks for weapons. Some see them as metaphors for spiritual journeys, while others wonder if they point to advanced knowledge. Real technology from the past or poetic imagination? What's your take? In Japan, in 1235, Commander Minamoto no Yoritsune and his soldiers spotted strange lights swinging in the sky like balls of fire moving at speed. He calmed his troops by suggesting it was just wind causing the display, but descriptions make it sound more organized than that. Was it wind playing tricks or an unexplained event? It leaves room for questions. Reports like this kept appearing across cultures. Vikings left carvings that someone interpreted as glowing discs in the sky, and medieval monks documented what they called battles in the heavens in their chronicles. We often label this as folklore today. But here's a paradox. When one person reports something strange, it's mythology. When hundreds of cultures across all continents describe the same thing, that's called statistics. And now we're getting to the point where statistics became a problem. If you think the military are the most down-to-earth people on the planet, you are right. They don't fantasize, they log reports. So building on those ancient mysteries we just explored, let's shift our gaze to more modern times. Times when the skies weren't just a canvas for folklore, but a battlefield buzzing with the machines and uncertainty. Take World War I, for instance. Amid the roar of engines and the chaos of dogfights over the Western Front, pilots from both sides began noticing something eerie. Strange lights that trailed their planes like uninvited shadows. These weren't random flickers. Reports paint vivid picture of luminous clusters pacing the aircraft at incredible speeds, darting sharply or vanishing at an instant. Dubbed moon companions, for their pale, ethereal glow they seem to observe without interfering, almost like silent guardians or spies. In one chilling account from 1916, a British Royal Flying Corps pilot over France described these lights holding perfect formation with his squadron for minutes on the end before peeling away into the night. With the relentless pressure of combat missions, these encounters were jotted down in official logs, but deeper probes? They took a backseat to immediate fight for survival. Fast forward a couple of decades to World War II, and the phenomenon escalated in ways that still send shivers down spines. The Foo Fighters. Yes, that's where the band name comes from. Before rock music, Foo Fighters meant UFOs. Picture this. American and British pilots striking through the dark skies on daring night raids over Germany and West Pacific, only to spot on glowing orbs. Fiery red, shimmering orange, cool silver, tailing their bombers with uncanny precision. These spheres didn't just hover. They weave through tight formations, split into smaller lights, or merge back together, all without a whisper of a sound or any sign of propulsion. The nickname Foo Fighter stuck after radio operator Donald Myers from the 415th Night Fighter Squadron coined it in November 1944, drawing from a comic strip slang for the fire or absurdity. A standout moment came later that year near Hagenau, where a B-17 crew watched two massive orange glows climb from a ground to 10,000 feet, shadowing them for miles, close enough to unnerve but never hostile. Naturally, the Allies packed them as Nazi Wunderwaffen, secret wonder weapons like radio-controlled drones or experimental jets. The Germans? They were convinced it was some clever Allied gadgetry. But as the dust settled post-war, interrogations and shared intel revealed the truth. No one on either side had launched or engineered them. The orbs remained an enigma, defying the era's technology. Now, imagine this. If something or someone wanted to quietly observe humanity as its rawest, wouldn't a global war be the ideal cover? Skies filled with watchful eyes, strange sights becoming almost routine amid a turmoil. Everyone scanning the heavens for threats, spotting anomalies left and right. But no one's diving deep into questions, because the focus stays locked on navigating the immediate dangers and making it through another mission. And here's where I usually pause and reflect. If these visitors were real, why stand by without stepping in? Perhaps the answer lies in perspective. They might not be here as heroes or conquerors. Maybe they are like distant scholars. Their role simply to observe, not rewrite our turbulent chapters, but to witness how we pen them ourselves. You know, as we move from those wartime mysteries into the post-war era, one event stands out as a turning point that really sparked modern UFOs discussions. It all unfolded in the summer of 1947, out in the dry landscapes of New Mexico. Picture this. Rancher William Mac Brazel is out checking his property near Roswell after a big storm, looking for any damage or lost sheep. Instead, he stumbles across a wide scatter of unusual debris. Pieces that looked like lightweight metal foil, but incredibly tough and flexible. Witnesses later described how you could crumble it up and it sprang right back into shape without a crease. There were also beam-like structures with strange markings that some said resembled hieroglyphics, and the whole field was littered over an area about 3/4 of a mile long. Brazel gathered some of it and took it to the local sheriff, who then passed it on to the nearby Roswell Army Airfield Base. That's when the story took off. On July 8, 1947, the base issued a press release, and the Roswell Daily Record ran with the headline, "RAAF captures flying saucer on a ranch in Roswell region." It caused an immediate stir. People were buzzing about it, wondering if this was proof of something extraterrestrial crashing down. But just a day later, on July 9th, the military held a press conference and backtracked completely, saying it was nothing more than a weather balloon that had come down. They even displayed some balloon wreckage to back it up. I have to say, that quick switch always makes me curious. How do you go from confidently calling it's a flying saucer one day to dismissing as a simple balloon the next? It raises questions about what might have been going on behind the scenes, and the story didn't end up there. Decades later, in the 1990s, when interest surfaced through books and investigations, the Air Force provided another explanation. It wasn't a regular weather balloon, but part of a top-secret Project Magul, which used high-altitude balloons with the microphones to spy on Soviet nuclear tests during the early Cold War. That made some sense for the secrecy at the time, but it didn't address everything. For instance, multiple witnesses, including military personnel like Major Jesse Marcel, who handled the debris, came forward years later claiming the material was unlike anything earthly. Some even reported seeing small non-human bodies recovered from the site and transported in trucks with sealed crates, allegedly sent to places like Wright Field or Walter Reed Medical Center for examination. As someone who is fascinated by these accounts, I lean toward believing there was more to it than just a balloon, especially with all the initial excitement and when the suburb shut down. Many researchers see it as a possible slip-up followed by a cover-up. And while Roosevelt couldn't have faded as an isolated mix-up, it didn't, because just 5 years later, something even bolder happened right over the heart of the US government.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any department of the United States.
Fast forward to July 1952, and the mystery ramps up in a way that's hard to ignore. It started on the weekend of July 1920 in Washington, D.C., when air traffic controllers at Washington National Airport picked up 7 unidentified objects on their radar screens. These weren't slow-moving blips that hover or cruise at low speeds, then suddenly accelerate to incredible velocities, up to 7,200 miles per hour, without any audible engine noise or detectable heat signatures. Airline pilots in the area reported seeing bright lights in the sky matching the radar tracks, and ground observers spotted them too, describing glowing orbs or saucer-like shapes zipping over restricted airspace, including near the White House and Capitol. The Air Force scrambled F-94 fighter jets from nearby bases to intercept, but it turned into a game of cat and mouse. As the pilots approached, the objects would vanish from the radar and sight, only to reappear once the jets headed back to refuel or land. This back and forth happened multiple times that night, and it wasn't a one-off. The same thing repeated a week later on July 26-27, with even more objects showing up on the radar and visual confirmations from military personnel. Newspapers the next days ran headlines like "Unidentified objects hover over White House," and this time the sources were credible. Federal radar operators, commercial pilots, and Air Force vets, not just casual onlookers. The Pentagon responded with a major press conference on July 29th, the largest since World War II, where officials explained it away as a temperature inversion. Basically, layers of warm air bending radar signals to create false echoes of ground objects like trucks or buildings. But that always leaves me wondering, if it was just weather playing tricks, how do you explain the visual sightings by trained pilots and the object's intelligent maneuvers, like evading the jets? It feels like another case where the official story shifts to something mundane, but the details don't fully add up. As a believer in the possibility of something more, I think these events show patterns that suggest observation or interaction, not just atmospheric quirks. After incidents like Roswell and this DC flap, public fascination grew, dividing opinions on whether it was secret tech, visitors from elsewhere, or outright hoaxes. But it also opened the door for bolder claims, and soon people weren't just reporting lights in the sky, they were sharing stories or direct encounters, like one man who said he didn't just see them, he met them face to face. I'm talking about George Adamski, originally from Poland and later based in the United States. He ran a diner near Mount Palomar while exploring philosophy and amateur astronomy. In 1952, he claimed a desert encounter with a Venetian humanoid, discussing peace and concerns over nuclear weapons via gestures and telepathy. He shared photos of a bell-shaped craft and wrote books like Flying Saucers Have Landed. Though often seen as hoaxes today, his tales drew crowds to lectures and inspired fan groups during the Cold War era. His ideas helped shape the concept of peaceful space brothers, observing humanity, sparkling wider interest in context stories. From claims like Adamski's, UFO interest organized into groups, marking the start of ufology as a popular pursuit. In the 1950s, organizations like APRO and NICAP formed to collect reports, interview witnesses, and push for investigations. Local clubs emerged everywhere, hosting sky watches and discussions, attracting not just hobbyists but professionals like military vets and engineers. The CIA monitored these, with documents later revealing efforts to track potential leaks of secret tech and prevent public alarm. By the late 1950s, ufology blended research with community events, conferences, and newsletters, while the government balanced dismissal with a quiet oversight.
We have come to visit you in peace and with goodwill.
At some point, UFOs stopped being just a topic of debate. They became an icon of an era, embedding into films and shaping public imagination. The 1951 movie The Day the Earth Stood Still featured an alien Klaatu warning about Earth's weapons, mirroring contactee ideas like Adamski's and resonating amid nuclear fears. It portrayed visitors as peaceful, drawing massive audience. Then, in 1977, Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third King transformed UFOs into symbols of wonder with lights, music, and awe-inspiring contact, inspired by the real reports and popularizing terms like Close Encounters. These hits amplified fascination, leading to merchandise, comics, and ongoing discussions. You know, while UFO stories were popping up in pop culture, some of the most compelling ones were happening far from Hollywood, like this one in Iran, which stands out as one of the best documented military encounters out there. It was September 19, 1976, when folks in Tehran started calling the police about a bright glowing object hanging over the city. At first, people figured it was just a star or maybe a planet, but then it started moving in weird ways, hovering in place, speeding up suddenly, and changing directions like nothing normal could. The Iranian Air Force didn't waste time. They scrambled two F-4 Phantom jets to check it out. The pilot of the first one tried to get close, but right then, All his electronics went haywire. Radar blanked out, system shut down, and comms went silent. As soon as he pulled away and changed course, everything snapped back to normal. The second jet pushed it even closer, and the pilot got a good look. A massive, glowing thing with flashing lights all around it. He lined up to fire a missile, but that's when a smaller disc broke off from the main object and headed straight for him. In that instant, his weapon system failed completely. The guy maneuvered away in a panic, and only after the disc swung back to rejoin the bigger object did his electronics kick in again. This wasn't just pilots seeing things. Hundreds of Tehran residents witnessed it too from the ground. Afterward, the Iranian Air Force put together an official report and shared it with the US. Even American intelligence took it seriously, noting in their docs that the case had a high degree of credibility. In other words, this was a real event, logged in official records that couldn't be explained away with everyday tech or weather. For anyone digging into UFOs, the Tehran Incident is a big one. It shows how even top-tier fighter jets were outmatched, hinting at something way more advanced at play. And it wasn't an isolated thing. Similar chases kept happening elsewhere. Just 3 years later, a similar story unfolded over Europe, pulling in civilians and military alike in a way that's hard to dismiss. On November 11, 1979, a TAA passenger flight was heading from Salzburg to the Canary Islands with over 100 people on board. Out of nowhere, the pilots spotted strange lights keeping pace with the plane. They thought at first it might be some military exercise, but these lights were maneuvering at insane speeds, shifting shapes, and basically toying with the airliner. Air traffic controllers in Barcelona confirmed it. They were picking up unknown blips on radar too. To play it safe and avoid any risk of collision, the pilots decided to make an emergency landing in Valencia. As the plane came down, the lights stuck with it almost the ground before vanishing. Ground controllers, military personnel, and even passengers got clear views of these glowing spheres outside the windows. The whole thing sparked a major uproar. Passengers shared their stories with reporters. Pilots gave official statements, and the military didn't deny the tracking objects were real. It even got dubbed the Madrid file because the documents ended up archived in Spain's Ministry of Defense. This is one of those rare cases where a government flat out admitted, yeah, it happened. Dozens of people confirmed it, but we can't explain what it was. Stories like this build on each other, showing patterns that go beyond coincidence, and they weren't limited to the West, as we'll see at the next one from behind the Iron Curtain. In the fall of 1977, something truly bizarre lit up the skies over Petrozavodsk in the Soviet Union, leaving residents stunned by a sight that was both terrifying and strangely beautiful. People heading out in the pre-dawn hours spotted this huge glowing object that looked like a giant jellyfish with the ray-like tentacles spreading out, sparkling in every color of the rainbow. It hung there in the sky. Then those rays started dipping down toward the ground, almost like they were reaching out. This wasn't a one-time flash. It was seen multiple times, and word got back to the Moscow Fest. A government team rushed in to investigate, and the official line came out pretty dry. Optical illusion. They blame it on rocket launches from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome, saying it was just light bending in the atmosphere. But here is the detail that didn't fit their tidy explanation. The next morning, Fox found perfectly melted holes in windows all over town, clean like they'd been drilled with the laser beam. Authorities shrugged it off as the kids with the air guns. But when people asked, then why are the edges melted? There was no solid answer. The whole thing got hushed up quick. Encounters like Petrozavodsk add another layer to the puzzle, showing how these phenomena crossed borders and left physical traces that officials struggled to wave away. From here, things only got more intense, especially when modern tech and veteran pilots entered the mix. November 2004, out in the Pacific Ocean near the California-Mexico border, the Navy got this massive carrier strike group led by the USS Nimitz running routine training exercises. But a few days before the big stuff kicks off, the radars on the high-tech cruiser US Princeton start picking up something totally off. Way up there, pushing the edge of the stratosphere, these unidentified blips show up.
My gosh! They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
They are hanging out at an insane altitude. For any known gear, around 28,000 feet, sometimes just drifting lazily at about 118 miles per hour, other times jolting into sharp moves and poof, vanishing off the screens. At first, the operators chalked it up to a glitch. The captain even orders a full reboot of their top-of-the-line Aegis system. But once it's back online, the picture's even clearer. There's a whole cluster of these things up there, and they're sure don't look like planes or birds. This weird aerial dance, popping in and out, goes on for days, keeping the whole command team on edge. Then, on the morning of November 14th, the objects are back. The Nimitz scrambles a pair of FA-18F Super Hornets, one flown by Commander David Fravor and his wingman. Fravor's the first to spot something that just blows his mind. Down below, on this perfectly calm ocean surface, there is this huge swirling whirlpool, maybe 330 feet across, like something massive just plunged into the depth. And hovering right over it, about 50 feet up, is this white object, smooth as it can be. No wings, no windows, no exhaust, just shaped like a Tic-Tac mint or a capsule. When the Hornets move in to engage, the Tic-Tac pulls off maneuvers that no human tech could touch. It's blasting along at staggering speeds, flipping directions on a dime, like inertia doesn't even apply. At one point, the thing mirrors Fravor's move in a way no plane on Earth could. It bolts from a dead stop and vanishes out of sight in seconds, leaving the pilots stunned. The whirlpool settles down right after. The guys head back to the carrier all fired up. Command realizes this is big, so they launch 4 more Super Hornets loaded with a cutting-edge 80 FLIR pods, infrared targeting cameras. Those crews managed to lock onto a group of the objects. The infrared footage, which later goes viral around the world, captures these UFOs dropping from about 60,000 feet down to sea level in mere seconds. Everything about the incident got locked down tight. The pilots had to sign strict NDAs, and all the recordings from the flight systems and radars were scooped up by a special team that choppered in pronto. The story didn't leak out until 2017, when bits of that infrared video surfaced. Skeptics yelled fake, but in 2019, the Navy confirmed the footage was real, and in 2020, the Pentagon posted it on their official site. Their wrap-up was short and bombshell. These objects are legit. Their performance doesn't match any known aircraft, and we've got no explanation for it. Following high-profile military encounters like the Tic-Tac, questions about government secrets only grew, leading some to take matters into their own hands. That's where Gary McKinnon comes in. In 2001-2002, this British system administrator and UFO enthusiast hacked into NASA and Pentagon servers using basic methods like exploding unchanged default passwords. He wasn't out to cause harm. His goal was to uncover evidence of hidden UFO information. What he claims to have found was striking: a list of non-terrestrial officers and a spreadsheet with ship names that didn't match any known US fleet, like vessels in a secret space program. When authorities caught on, the US pushed for his extradition, facing potential charges that could mount up to 70 years in prison. In the end, the UK blocked the extradition in 2012, citing his Asperger's syndrome and mental health concerns. McKinnon was stood by his statements ever since. So, was it all fabrication, or did he really stumble into something classified? Either way, the intense response raises eyebrows about what might be hidden. And these aren't just old tales. Recent close encounters bring the mystery right back in our backyards. Las Vegas, May 1, 2023. Late that night, police get a frantic 911 call from a family.
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes, like I can't explain it. And big mouth. They're tiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% not human.
The recording is out there, and it's genuine, no hoax. Officers respond quickly, and their body cam footage captures the tension. You can see they're rattled. Just a minute before the call, the video shows a bright glowing streak cutting across the sky like something falling fast. But when they search the area, nothing turns up. No craft, no beings. The family didn't chase publicity. They were genuinely scared and have stuck to their story ever since. This is the kind of case that makes you stop and reflect. Back in the day, we could write off rumors as tall tales of Hollywood hype, but now, with reports from military pros, astronauts, pilots, police, and intel folks, all echoing the same line, we don't know what it is, but it is real. After modern-day encounters like the Las Vegas one, where everyday people and authorities alike are left scratching their heads, rumors often swirl about shadowy figures stepping in to keep things quiet. Enter the men in black. Not the movie stars, but the eerie visitors described in UFO lore since the 1950s. These are typically portrayed as 2 or 3 men in identical black suits showing up unannounced at witnesses' doors shortly after a sighting. Reports paint them as pale, emotionless, with stiff movements and speech that sounds scripted, almost robotic. Their goal? To warn people against talking, sometimes with veiled threats, while knowing details that weren't public. One early case involved Albert Bender in 1953, who shut down his UFO group after a visit from 3 such men who knew his unpublished research. Other stories mention them flashing fake IDs or driving unmarked black cars. Rumors abound. Are they government agents covering up secrets, aliens in disguise, or something in between? Whatever the truth, these tales add a layer of intrigue to why some of the stories fade fast. But for clearer insights, let's turn to those who've been up there themselves. Astronauts and cosmonauts sharing what they saw from orbit.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine run.
If anyone's views carry weight on this, it's the folks who've stared down at Earth from space, far removed from ground-level distractions. Their accounts offer a unique perspective on the unknown. Take Gordon Cooper, one of the NASA's original Mercury astronauts. He described seeing a disk land in the airbase in 1957, captured on film, that was whisked away to the Pentagon, never to be seen again. Then there is Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 astronaut, and a 6th man to walk on the moon. After his mission, he openly stated that visits from elsewhere have been happening for a long time, with governments aware but not ready to disclose it.
They've been observing us and here for quite some time, and we see these craft all the time. The reason for the denial was, number one, they didn't know if these were hostile and could we protect ourselves from them. Didn't want the Soviets to know, so they devised to lie about it and cover it up.
On the Soviet side, cosmonaut Vladimir Kovalyonok, while abroad the Salyut 6 station, observed an object and recently declassified logs from Valentina Tereshkova. She was the first woman in space. Add another piece. At 2:20 p.m., she noted a bright object roughly 3 times the size of the star Vega zipping across the sky. She even included a sketch of it in her journal. When so many space veterans from both sides of the Cold War describe similar unexplained sights, it makes you wonder if there is more to our skies than we realize. And as we'll see next, even official hearings are starting to acknowledge it. On July 26, 2023, the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Accountability held a hearing titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Implications on National Security, Public Safety and Government Transparency. 3 witnesses took the stand under oath. David Grush, a former Air Force intelligence officer with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. David Fravor, the Navy pilot from the Tic-Tac encounter, and Ryan Graves, another Navy pilot who reported routine UAP sightings of the East Coast. The exchanges were direct and eye-opening, pulling back the curtain on years of speculation. For instance,
Mr. Grush, as a result of your previous government work, have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself of non-human origin craft?
Yes, I personally interviewed those individuals. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
On the programs themselves, Grush referenced his earlier work.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it.
Shifting to Favor,
looked down a small, white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water.
Favor confirmed details of the encounter, and when asked again,
do you believe UAPs pose a potential threat to our national security?
Yes, and here's why. The technology that we faced was far superior than anything that we had.
The room hung on every word. These weren't fringe theorists, but decorated veterans speaking under oath. For the first time, Congress publicly grappled with the UAPs as a serious national security matter, not just folklore. Then, just over a year later, the story continued. On October 30th, 2024, Congress held another UAP hearing, this time with something no one expected. A classified military video shown publicly for the first time. Representative Eric Burleson presented footage recorded by an AMQ-9 Reaper drone off the coast of Yemen. In the video, a glowing orb-like object moves smoothly over the sea. Suddenly, a Hellfire missile is fired straight at it. The explosion is visible, but the object keeps flying. This is when it zoomed out. You can still see it's traveling. Burleson explained to the committee. Analysts were stunned. The missile should have destroyed whatever it hit. Instead, the orb seemed unaffected, shedding fragments as it continued its path, a scene confirmed by defense footage authenticated by the Pentagon. This wasn't grainy night sky video or a pilot's blurry camera feed. It was a weapon-grade, time-stamped data, the kind that makes officials squirm. For the first time, Congress wasn't just debating radar blips or eyewitnesses' accounts. They were watching direct evidence of something our most advanced weaponry couldn't stop. It forced a chilling new question into the room. If a US missile can bring down an UAP, what exactly are we dealing with? These hearings sparked widespread debate, prompting more whistleblowers to come forward, fueling online communities, and pushing for greater transparency through bills like the UAP Disclosure Act. It shifted the narrative from skepticism to scrutiny, with media coverage exploding and public polls showing growing belief in government-held secrets. In essence, it marked a turning point. UAPs were no longer dismissed. They demanded answers. You and I have just walked a path stretching from Egyptian carvings to congressional hearings, from jellyfish skies over Petrozavodsk to flying tic-tacs of San Diego, from Farmer Adamski to world-class pilots speaking under oath. And honestly, we can no longer pretend nothing is happening. So here comes the real question. What if we are truly not alone? What if they've been watching us since ancient times? What if the next object like 3-Eye Atlas isn't just passing by, but arriving with intent? Are we ready? Are we ready to meet another intelligence? Or will the shadows in our skies keep deepening until we are forced to face what's been there all along? If this video sparked your curiosity about what's really out there, hit that like button to show your support. Subscribe for more mind-bending stories and updates on mysteries. Hit the bell so you never miss one. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway or what UFO case blew your mind, and share this with a friend who is ready to question everything. Thank you for watching. Kiss. See you soon.